The whistle of the approaching train pierced the crisp autumn air of 1878, but Olivia Pierce barely heard it through her tears. Dust swirled around her skirts as she sat alone on the wooden bench at Willow Creek Station, her valise clutched tightly to her chest like a shield. The Wyoming Territory stretched vast and unforgiving before her, but not as unforgiving as what she was leaving behind. "Train's coming, miss. Last one east for 3 days." The station master called, not unkindly, from his post. Olivia nodded without looking up, her gloved fingers tracing the worn edges of the ticket to Chicago. 3 years in the West, and now she was retreating, defeated like so many other women who came with dreams only to find hardship. The rumble of approaching hoofbeats barely registered until they stopped abruptly nearby. Boot heels struck the wooden platform with urgency, each step drawing closer. "Olivia!" The voice cut through her misery like a knife. She knew without looking who stood there: Samuel Blackwood, with his broad shoulders and that ridiculous hat he never seemed to remove. The same man who'd turned her carefully ordered world upside down since the moment he dragged her half-drowned from Willow Creek last spring. "The train's coming," she said flatly, not trusting herself to look at him. Samuel moved closer, his shadow falling across her tear-streaked face. He crouched down, one hand gently lifting her chin. His blue eyes, always so confident and clear, searched her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Don't leave," he said simply. "You've already been found." Olivia stared at him, confusion mingling with the ache in her chest. "What are you talking about? I've been looking for you my whole life without knowing it," Samuel said, his voice rough with emotion. "And now you're running away." The train whistle blew again, closer now, steam visible in the distance as it approached the bend. "I have nothing left here," Olivia whispered, though her grip on the ticket loosened slightly. Samuel shook his head, a strand of dark hair falling across his forehead. "That's not true. You have me." The words hung between them as the train rounded the bend, its massive iron body coming into view. 6 months earlier, Olivia had never imagined her life would lead her to this moment. Chicago had been her home, predictable and safe, until her father's death left her with nothing but debts and a letter from her estranged aunt in Wyoming. A temporary solution, she'd told herself. Just long enough to earn passage to Boston where a teaching position might await. Wyoming Territory had other plans. The day Olivia arrived in Willow Creek had been unseasonably warm for April. Her aunt's letter had promised someone would meet her, but as the hours passed at the station, it became clear no one was coming. With her trunk too heavy to carry and the town a mile away across unfamiliar terrain, she had started walking, only to lose her footing at the creek crossing. The spring melt had turned the normally placid creek into a rushing torrent, and within seconds, she was swept downstream, her heavy skirts dragging her under. Samuel had been tracking a stray calf when he heard her screams. Without hesitation, he'd plunged into the icy water, dragging her to safety on the muddy bank. Soaked and shivering, Olivia had looked up into the face of her rescuer, a face that managed to be both handsome and weathered, with eyes the color of the summer sky. "You must be Miss Pierce," he'd said, wringing water from his hat. "Your aunt sent me to fetch you. I'm Samuel Blackwood." Coughing up creek water was hardly the introduction Olivia had planned. "You're late, Mr. Blackwood." His laugh had been unexpected, deep and genuine. "And you're impatient, Miss Pierce. Welcome to Wyoming." Now, months later, the memory of that first meeting burned bright as the train pulled into the station, belching steam and cinders. "Final boarding for Chicago," the conductor called. Samuel's hand closed over hers. "Whatever happened with Margaret, whatever she said to you—" "It's not just Aunt Margaret," Olivia interrupted, though the mention of her aunt's cruel words that morning made her wince. "It's everything. This place is not for me. I don't belong here. You belong wherever you choose to, Samuel said firmly. And I'm asking you to choose here. Choose me. The conductor stepped onto the platform. All aboard. Passengers began to move forward, collecting their belongings. Olivia stood, her legs unsteady beneath her. I can't just— Yes, you can, Samuel insisted. I know you're scared, but running back east won't fix what's broken. Let me help you find what you're looking for. And what am I looking for? Olivia asked, her voice barely audible over the hiss of the train. Samuel's expression softened. Home. The conductor approached them. Madam? Your ticket. Olivia looked down at the paper in her hand, then back at Samuel's face, open, honest, and showing something she'd been too afraid to acknowledge. Something that mirrored the feelings she'd been fighting for months. Olivia hesitated, her heart racing. I won't be needing it. The conductor nodded and moved on. The train whistle blew one final time. Samuel's smile broke slowly across his face, like the sunrise over the prairie. Are you sure? No, Olivia admitted with a shaky laugh. I'm not sure of anything anymore. That's a start, Samuel said, gently taking her valise. Now, will you tell me what Margaret said that sent you running to the station? Olivia's smile faltered. The morning's events came flooding back her aunt's cold fury. The accusations, the ultimatum. She found the sketches, Olivia said quietly. My drawings of the town, the ranch. Of you. Understanding dawned in Samuel's eyes. He knew how much her art meant to her, how she'd hidden it from her disapproving aunt who considered it frivolous. And she said no proper lady would waste time on such foolishness, that I was becoming wild and uncivilized just like. Olivia swallowed hard, just like my mother before she ran off with that artist. Samuel's jaw tightened. Your aunt has a gift for cruelty. She told me to burn them and focus on more appropriate pursuits if I wanted to remain under her roof. Olivia blinked back fresh tears. When I refused, she said I could leave. So you were running away rather than giving up your art? Olivia nodded, suddenly feeling foolish. It sounds trivial when you say it like that. It's not trivial, Samuel said firmly. It's who you are. He glanced at the departing train, then back to her. Come on. Let's get you somewhere warm. We can figure everything else out later. As they walked away from the station, the train to Chicago pulled away, taking with it the future Olivia had imagined for herself. Ahead lay uncertainty, but for the first time since arriving in Wyoming, she felt a strange sense of possibility. Samuel led her to his horse, a sturdy buckskin gelding waiting patiently nearby. Can you ride with me to the ranch? I have some things to show you. Your ranch? Olivia asked, surprised. Samuel worked as the foreman at the Rocking W, owned by William Walsh, one of the largest cattlemen in the territory. No, Samuel said with a mysterious smile. Somewhere else. The ride took them away from town, following the creek upstream into rolling hills dotted with cottonwoods turning gold with autumn. Samuel's arm around her waist felt solid and reassuring as they rode double, his chest warm against her back despite the cooling afternoon. After nearly an hour, they crested a hill overlooking a small valley. Below sat a modest cabin with a new barn beside it, smoke curling from the stone chimney. A creek smaller than Willow Creek but clear and bright cut through the property. What is this place? Olivia asked as Samuel guided the horse down the slope. My place, he said simply. Been building it for almost 2 years now, whenever I could spare time from the Rocking W. As they drew closer, Olivia could see details she'd missed from a distance: the careful craftsmanship of the cabin's porch, the small fenced garden, the paddock where a few horses grazed. It's beautiful, she said honestly. Samuel helped her down from the horse, his hands lingering at her waist. It's not finished yet. The inside needs work, and I want to expand the cabin come spring. Why are you showing me this? Olivia asked, though something in her heart already knew the answer. Samuel took a deep breath. Because I've been working on it for you. For me, Olivia's voice caught. But how could you know? I didn't know for certain, Samuel admitted. But I hoped. Ever since I pulled you from that creek. Something told me you were meant to be here. He gestured toward the cabin. Would you like to see inside? Olivia nodded, unable to find words. Samuel took her hand and led her to the cabin, pushing open the door with a slight creak of its leather hinges. The interior was simple but thoughtfully arranged, a stone fireplace dominating one wall, rough-hewn furniture that spoke of Samuel's handiwork, shelves lined with books that surprised her. But what took Olivia's breath away was the small table positioned beneath the largest window, where the afternoon light streamed in golden rays. On it sat drawing paper, pencils, and a small box of paints. Samuel, she whispered, moving toward the table. How did you? I saw you sketching by the creek that day in May, he explained, watching her face carefully. You didn't know I was there. You looked free, the way you should always look. Tears threatened again, but these were different from the desperate sobs that had racked her at the station. These felt like release. I can't stay here, she said, though the words lacked conviction. People would talk. Samuel's laugh was gentle. People already talk. But if it matters to you, I wasn't suggesting you move in today. He stepped closer, his expression growing serious. I'm suggesting a future, Olivia. One we build together. I hardly know you, she protested weakly. That's not true, Samuel countered. You know I rise before dawn and work until my hands are raw. You know I can't abide liars or men who mistreat animals. You know I read Dickens by lamplight and that I take my coffee black as sin. Olivia couldn't help smiling. And you know I'm stubborn and impractical and that I dream of painting landscapes that no one will ever see. I'll see them, Samuel said softly. I'll hang every one on these walls and be proud to do it. He reached for her then, slowly enough that she could have stepped away. Olivia didn't move. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb gently brushing away the remnants of her tears. I'm not asking for promises today, he said. Just don't leave. Stay in Willow Creek. If you can't go back to your aunt's, Mrs. Holloway at the boarding house would give you a room. Take time to know your own mind. The offer was generous, far more than she deserved after nearly fleeing without a word to him. The realization of how much that would have hurt him, how much she would have regretted it, settled over her like a physical weight. And if I do stay? Olivia asked carefully. What then? Samuel's smile was cautious but hopeful. Then we see where this leads. No rush, no pressure. Just two people finding their way. Outside, the sun was beginning its descent toward the mountains, painting the small valley in hues of gold and amber. It was beautiful in a wild, untamed way that still sometimes frightened Olivia. But standing in this cabin, with this man who had built it board by board with his own hands, that wildness felt less threatening. I'll stay, she said finally. Not because I have nowhere else to go, but because I want to see where this leads to. The relief in Samuel's eyes was palpable. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead gently against hers. That's all I'm asking for, a chance. As the shadows lengthened across the valley, they sat on the porch of the unfinished cabin, watching the sunset paint the Wyoming sky in colors Olivia knew she would try to capture in her art for years to come. For the first time since arriving in this territory, she felt something like peace. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, whether she would find courage enough to build a life so different from the one she'd planned. But as Samuel's hand found hers in the gathering dusk, Olivia allowed herself to hope. True to his word, Samuel escorted Olivia to Mrs. Holloway's boarding house that evening. The older woman welcomed her with surprisingly little curiosity, offering a small but clean room on the second floor that overlooked the main street of Willow Creek. "It's not fancy," Mrs. Holloway apologized, lighting the lamp on the bedside table. "But it's yours for as long as you need it." Olivia set her valise on the narrow bed. "Thank you. I'm not sure how long I'll be staying, but I can pay for 2 weeks in advance." Mrs. Holloway waved away the offered money. "Mr. Blackwood settled your account for the month. Said you'd be needing time to get established." Heat rose in Olivia's cheeks. "That wasn't necessary. I have some savings." The older woman's eyes softened. "That man doesn't do anything because it's necessary, child. He does it because his heart tells him to." She patted Olivia's hand. "Breakfast is at 6. Don't be late or the Cowboys will have eaten everything worth having." After Mrs. Holloway left, Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by the day's rapid changes. This morning, she'd awakened in her aunt's house, expecting another day of tension and silent disapproval. Now she found herself alone, yet somehow less adrift than she'd been in months. A soft knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find Samuel standing in the hallway, hat in hand, looking suddenly uncertain. "I brought your trunk from your aunt's," he said. "It's downstairs. I didn't want to presume to bring it up." "Thank you," Olivia said, touched by his thoughtfulness. Did you see my aunt?" Samuel's expression darkened slightly. "Yes, she had some choice words about your departure." "I'm sure she did," Olivia sighed. "I should go speak with her tomorrow. Explain myself properly." "You don't owe her explanations," Samuel said firmly. "Perhaps not, but I owe myself the dignity of not sneaking away." Olivia leaned against the doorframe. "Besides, some of my drawings are still there." Samuel smiled at that. "Then I'll accompany you. I'd like to see these sketches that caused such an uproar." "They're nothing special," Olivia demurred. "Just moments that caught my eye. If they're from your hand, they're special," Samuel said with such simple conviction that Olivia felt herself blush again. A moment of silence stretched between them, comfortable yet charged with unspoken possibilities. Finally, Samuel cleared his throat. "I should let you rest. It's been a long day." He stepped back. "Perhaps tomorrow, after you've spoken with your aunt, you might join me for dinner? There's someone I'd like you to meet." Curiosity piqued. Olivia nodded. "Who?" "A surprise," Samuel said with a mysterious smile. "But one I think you'll appreciate." After he left, Olivia unpacked her meager belongings and prepared for bed. Through the thin curtains, she could see the lights of Willow Creek glowing in the darkness, a town she'd come to know but never truly considered home. Until today. Sleep came surprisingly easily, and when she woke the next morning, Olivia felt a sense of purpose that had been missing for too long. After a hearty breakfast with Mrs. Holloway and her other boarders, 2 shopkeepers, and an elderly widow, Olivia dressed in her best day dress and prepared to face her aunt. Samuel was waiting for her on the boarding house porch, looking fresh despite the early hour. He offered his arm as they walked the short distance to Margaret Pierce's home at the edge of town. "Are you nervous?" he asked as they approached the neat white house with its immaculate garden. "Terrified," Olivia admitted. "Aunt Margaret has a gift for making me feel like a disappointing child." Samuel squeezed her hand where it rested on his arm. "Remember, you're a grown woman making your own choices. She has no power over you except what you give her." The words bolstered Olivia's courage as Samuel knocked on the front door. It opened almost immediately, revealing Margaret Pierce's tall, austere figure. "I thought you might return once your childish tantrum subsided," her aunt said coldly, deliberately ignoring Samuel. "Though I didn't expect you to bring company." "May we come in, Aunt Margaret?" Olivia asked, striving to keep her voice steady. "I'd like to collect my belongings." Margaret's lips thinned, but she stepped aside, allowing them to enter the immaculate parlor. Nothing seemed to have changed since yesterday, as though Olivia's absence had barely registered in the house's orderly routine. "I assume you're staying at the boarding house," Margaret said, seating herself rigidly on the settee. "Mrs. Holloway runs a respectable establishment, at least." "Yes," Olivia confirmed. "She's been very kind." "And how long do you intend to impose on her hospitality?" Her aunt's gaze flicked dismissively to Samuel, who stood quietly by the doorway. "Or perhaps you have other arrangements in mind." The implication stung, but Olivia refused to rise to the bait. "I'll be seeking employment in town, perhaps at the schoolhouse or Mr. Davidson's mercantile." Margaret sniffed. "Davidson won't hire you. His wife doesn't approve of young women with artistic temperaments." Samuel stepped forward. "Mrs. Pierce, your niece is talented and hardworking. Any business in town would be fortunate to have her." "I didn't ask for your assessment, Mr. Blackwood," Margaret replied icily. "Though I'm not surprised you've appointed yourself my niece's champion. Men like you always seek easy prey." "Aunt Margaret," Olivia gasped. "That's unfair and unkind." "What's unkind is watching you throw away your future on frontier fantasies," her aunt retorted. "Your mother made the same mistake, and it destroyed her." Olivia stiffened. Her mother was rarely mentioned, the circumstances of her departure from the family a closely guarded secret. "What do you mean?" Margaret seemed to realize she'd said too much. She waved a dismissive hand. "It doesn't matter now. If you're determined to make your own mistakes, I won't stop you." She rose. "Your things are where you left them. Take them and go." Olivia hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you for your hospitality these past months." "Don't thank me," Margaret said, her voice suddenly tired rather than angry. "Just don't come crying back when this wilderness breaks your heart the way it broke hers." Upstairs in the small room that had been hers, Olivia quickly gathered her few personal possessions and the hidden portfolio of sketches. Samuel helped carry her things, maintaining a respectful silence until they were outside again. "Are you all right?" he asked as they walked back toward town. "I'm not sure," Olivia admitted. "She's never spoken of my mother that way before." Samuel's brow furrowed. "What happened to your mother?" Olivia sighed. "The story I was told is that she ran away with an artist when I was 5. My father never recovered from the abandonment. But sometimes I wonder if there's more to it." "Maybe there is," Samuel said thoughtfully, "which makes me even more certain you should meet my surprise guest tonight." Olivia's curiosity grew, but Samuel refused to elaborate further. He escorted her back to the boarding house, promising to return at 6 for dinner. The hours passed slowly. Olivia organized her belongings in the small room, then ventured out to inquire about employment opportunities. To her surprise and contrary to her aunt's prediction, Mr. Davidson at the mercantile was quite receptive to her inquiry. "I could use help with the bookkeeping and correspondence," he said, stroking his beard thoughtfully. "My eyes aren't what they used to be, and my daughter's expecting her 3rd child next month." "I have experience with accounts," Olivia said eagerly. "My father was a banker in Chicago." "Pierce, you said?" Davidson nodded. "Thought the name sounded familiar." "Your father handled some investments for my brother back east." He extended his hand. "You can start Monday. 6 days a week, 8 until 5 with Sundays off." Buoyed by this unexpected success, Olivia returned to the boarding house to prepare for dinner with Samuel. She chose her blue dress, the one he'd once said matched her eyes, and arranged her hair more carefully than usual. At precisely 6 o'clock, Samuel arrived, looking handsome in a clean shirt and vest, his usually unruly hair tamed for the occasion. You look beautiful, he said sincerely, offering his arm. Thank you, Olivia replied, pleased by the admiration in his eyes. Where are we going? Who's this mysterious person I'm meeting? Samuel guided her toward the edge of town, away from the usual establishments where townspeople dined. Patience, Miss Pierce. All will be revealed. They walked to a small house set back from the main road, its windows glowing warmly in the early evening darkness. Samuel knocked on the door, which swung open to reveal a woman perhaps 10 years older than Olivia, with striking gray eyes and an artist's paint-stained hands. Samuel, right on time, the woman said warmly, her gaze shifting curiously to Olivia. And you must be Miss Pierce. Olivia, this is Sophia Winters, Samuel introduced them. Sophia, this is Olivia Pierce. Please come in. Sophia welcomed them, stepping aside. Dinner's almost ready. The interior of the small house took Olivia's breath away. Every wall was covered with paintings, landscapes capturing the wild beauty of Wyoming in all seasons, portraits of townspeople and Native Americans, still lives of Western life. In one corner stood an easel with a half-finished canvas, brushes soaking in jars nearby. You're an artist? Olivia breathed. Moving toward the nearest, painting a stunning sunrise over mountains she recognized from the northern edge of the territory. Sophia smiled. I am. And Samuel tells me you might be one too. Olivia glanced at Samuel, who was watching her reaction with evident satisfaction. I sketch a little. Nothing like this. Everyone starts somewhere, Sophia said kindly. Samuel mentioned you might show me your work after dinner. Dinner was simple but delicious: venison stew, fresh bread, and apple pie for dessert. As they ate, Sophia shared her story, one that resonated deeply with Olivia. I came west 10 years ago with my husband, she explained. He was chasing gold. I was chasing horizons to paint. We made it as far as Denver before typhoid took him. Her smile turned wistful. I could have gone back east, but something about this country had already claimed me. So I kept moving, painting what I saw, selling enough to survive. How did you end up in Willow Creek? Olivia asked, fascinated. William Walsh, the rancher Samuel works for, commissioned me to paint his wife's portrait 3 years ago. He liked my work enough to offer me this cottage and a stipend to teach his daughter's art. Sophia gestured around the room. It's not the life I imagined in Philadelphia, but it's mine, and I've grown to love it. After dinner, with gentle encouragement from both Samuel and Sophia, Olivia hesitantly shared her portfolio of sketches. Sophia examined each one with professional interest, occasionally nodding or making thoughtful sounds. You have genuine talent, she said finally, looking up at Olivia with sincere admiration. Your eye for detail is exceptional, and there's emotion in your work. With proper training and practice, you could develop into a fine artist. Proper training? Olivia echoed, hardly daring to hope. Sophia glanced at Samuel, who nodded encouragingly. I've been thinking of taking on a student, she said casually. Someone to assist with the Walsh girls' lessons and perhaps help with some of my commission work. In exchange, I could teach you proper technique, color theory, composition. Olivia stared at her in disbelief. Are you offering to teach me? Samuel speaks very highly of you, Sophia said with a smile, and your work confirms his judgment. If you're interested, we could start next week. Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Samuel suggested softly. This is what you want, isn't it? Olivia nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. In one day, she had secured both employment and the chance to pursue her passion, opportunities she'd never imagined finding in Willow Creek. Later, as Samuel walked her back to the boarding house under a sky brilliant with stars, Olivia finally found her voice again. How did you know? She asked. About Sophia, about what it would mean to me? Samuel's smile was visible even in the darkness. I pay attention, Olivia. I've watched you these past months, seen how your eyes light up when you're sketching, how you study the landscape like you're memorizing every detail. He shrugged. Sophia needed help. You needed a teacher. It seemed like fate. And you made it happen, Olivia said, stopping to look up at him. Why would you go to such trouble for me? Samuel's expression grew serious. Because I care about your happiness. Because I think you belong here, not just in Wyoming, but in my life. He took her hand gently. Is that too forward? No, Olivia whispered, her heart racing. It's not too forward at all. Under the vast Wyoming sky, with the sounds of Willow Creek's nightlife humming in the background, Samuel bent his head and kissed her a kiss as gentle as it was promising. Olivia's hands found their way to his shoulders, steadying herself against the rush of emotion. When they finally parted, Samuel's smile was both tender and triumphant. I've been wanting to do that since I pulled you from that creek. Olivia laughed softly. Even when I was coughing up water and looking like a drowned rat? Especially then, he teased. You were so indignant, sitting there in the mud with your fancy hat ruined, lecturing me about punctuality. The memory made them both laugh, the sound mingling in the night air like a promise. As they continued their walk to the boarding house, Olivia realized that for the first time since arriving in Wyoming Territory, she was exactly where she wanted to be. The following weeks unfolded like the pages of a book Olivia hadn't known she was writing. Mornings at Davidson's Mercantile introduced her to the rhythm of Willow Creek's commerce, the ranchers coming in for supplies, the townswomen gossiping over fabric selections, the occasional traveler passing through with stories from beyond the territory's borders. Afternoons with Sophia opened a world of color and technique Olivia had only dreamed of. The older woman proved to be a patient but exacting teacher, pushing Olivia to see beyond the obvious, to capture not just the appearance of her subjects but their essence. Art isn't reproduction, Sophia often said, adjusting Olivia's hand on the brush. It's interpretation. Show me how this landscape makes you feel, not just what it looks like. And then there were the evenings with Samuel. As autumn deepened into winter, they established a comfortable routine dinner together 3 nights a week. Sunday afternoons at his homestead where they worked side by side preparing for the coming cold, and stolen moments of increasing intimacy that left Olivia breathless and yearning. Samuel was patient, never pushing beyond what felt right, but making no secret of his intentions. I'm courting you properly, Olivia Pierce, he declared one evening as they sat before the fire in his cabin. In case that wasn't clear, Olivia had smiled, warmed by more than the flames. It's becoming increasingly clear, Mr. Blackwood. Not everyone in Willow Creek approved of their relationship. Margaret Pierce made her disapproval known through pointed snubs when they passed in town. Some of the more conservative matrons whispered behind their hands when Olivia and Samuel attended church together. But others like Mrs. Holloway, the Davidsons, and Sheriff Taylor offered quiet support that meant more than Olivia could express. Don't mind the gossips, Mrs. Holloway advised one evening when Olivia returned from dinner with Samuel, cheeks flushed from more than the cold. Half of them are jealous, and the other half have forgotten what it's like to be young and in love. In love. The words echoed in Olivia's mind long after she'd retired to her room. Was that what this was? This constant awareness of Samuel, this happiness that bubbled up whenever he was near, this sense of rightness when they were together? The answer came to her on a bitterly cold December morning. Willow Creek had awakened to nearly 2 feet of snow, transforming the rugged landscape into a pristine wonderland. Olivia had hurried through her morning duties at the Mercantile, eager to capture the scene in a painting for Sophia's upcoming exhibition. She was setting up her easel at the edge of town when the sound of approaching hoofbeats made her turn. Samuel appeared through the falling snow, his horse leaving deep tracks in the fresh powder. "What are you doing out in this weather?" he called, dismounting with fluid grace despite the cold. "Painting," Olivia replied, gesturing to her canvas. "The light on the snow is perfect right now." Samuel shook his head, brushing snowflakes from his coat. "You'll catch your death. Your hands are already turning blue." Before she could protest, he removed his gloves and slipped them over her cold fingers. The leather was warm from his body, enveloping her hands in his heat. "Now you'll be cold," Olivia objected. Samuel just smiled, taking her paint-stained hands in his and bringing them to his lips. "I'll survive." His breath fogged in the frigid air. "I've weathered worse storms than this." Looking up at him, snowflakes catching in his dark eyelashes, his face reddened by the cold, his eyes bright with an emotion she no longer feared naming, Olivia knew with sudden clarity that she loved this man. Loved his strength and his gentleness, his respect for her dreams, his unwavering belief in possibilities. "Samuel," she began, then faltered, uncertain how to express what was in her heart. He seemed to understand anyway, his expression softening as he cupped her cheek with his cold hand. "I know," he said simply. "Me too." They stood there in the falling snow, the unspoken words hanging between them like a promise waiting to be claimed. Finally, Samuel nodded toward her easel. "Finish your painting," he said. "I'll wait and walk you back." Olivia worked quickly, her brush capturing the ethereal quality of the snow-covered town. The gray-blue shadows, the golden light spilling from windows. Samuel watched silently, occasionally stamping his feet to keep warm but never complaining. When she finished, he helped pack her supplies, his movements efficient despite fingers stiff with cold. As they walked back toward town, Samuel suddenly stopped, turning to face her. "I've been thinking," he said, uncharacteristically hesitant. "Christmas is coming. Would you consider spending it with me? At the homestead?" The invitation held weight beyond a simple holiday celebration. They both knew it. "What would people say?" Olivia asked, though she cared less about the answer with each passing day. Samuel's laugh created another cloud in the cold air. "They'll say exactly what they're already saying. That the Chicago banker's daughter has lost her mind over a Wyoming cowboy." "And have I?" Olivia teased, her heart light despite the serious undercurrent. "I hope so," Samuel replied, his voice dropping to a more intimate tone. "Because that Wyoming cowboy lost his heart to you the moment you looked up at him from that creek bank and lectured him about punctuality." Snow continued to fall around them as Olivia made her decision. "Yes," she said firmly, "I'll spend Christmas with you." The days leading up to Christmas passed in a flurry of activity. Willow Creek transformed itself with evergreen boughs and red ribbons, the usual rough edges softened by holiday cheer. Olivia divided her time between the mercantile, where customers flocked for last-minute gifts, and Sophia's studio, where she was helping complete a commissioned portrait for the mayor's wife. "You're distracted today," Sophia observed as Olivia mixed the same shade of blue for the third time. "Thinking about Christmas at Samuel's?" Olivia's cheeks warmed. "Is it that obvious?" Sophia's smile was knowing. Only to someone who was once young and in love herself. She set down her brush, giving Olivia her full attention. "Are you nervous about what spending the holiday alone with him might lead to?" The directness of the question startled Olivia, but she appreciated her friend's honesty. "Yes," she admitted. "Not because I don't want. That is, I care deeply for Samuel, but you were raised to believe certain things happen only after marriage," Sophia finished for her. "There's nothing wrong with those beliefs, Olivia. And knowing Samuel, he respects them too." "He does," Olivia agreed, remembering the careful way Samuel always ensured their moments of passion remained within boundaries she could accept. But sometimes I wonder if I'm being foolish. Out here, things are different. Sophia considered this. Different, yes, but that doesn't mean without value or meaning. Whatever you decide should be because it's what you truly want, not because you think it's expected. She patted Olivia's hand. Just be honest with him, and with yourself. The conversation stayed with Olivia as Christmas Eve arrived, crisp and clear after days of snow. Samuel collected her in his sleigh at noon, her small trunk of belongings and carefully wrapped presents stowed securely in the back. Mrs. Holloway made me promise to have you back by noon on the 26th, he told her as they glided over the snow-covered road. She was very specific about the time. Olivia laughed. She's appointed herself my guardian. Last night she gave me a rather unexpected talk about maintaining proper behavior even during holidays. Samuel's eyebrows rose. Did she now? She also mentioned that proper behavior is subject to interpretation when two people care for each other as much as we do. Olivia glanced at him mischievously. I believe she was giving me permission to make my own decisions. Mrs. Holloway is a wise woman, Samuel said carefully, though his eyes had darkened in a way that sent a pleasant shiver through Olivia. The homestead looked like something from a fairy tale as they approached. Samuel had strung evergreen garlands along the porch railing and placed candles in each window. Smoke curled invitingly from the chimney, promising warmth against the winter chill. Inside, the transformation continued. A small pine tree stood in the corner, decorated with strings of dried berries, pine cones dipped in wax, and a few precious glass ornaments. A fire blazed in the hearth, and delicious smells wafted from the kitchen area. Samuel, Olivia breathed, turning in a slow circle to take it all in. This is beautiful. I wanted it to be special, he said, suddenly looking boyishly uncertain. Is it too much? Olivia shook her head, moved beyond words by the effort he'd made. For her, always for her. The afternoon passed in comfortable domesticity. They prepared dinner together, laughing when Samuel nearly ruined the potatoes, celebrating when Olivia's pie emerged golden and perfect from the oven. They exchanged gifts by firelight, a new set of paints and brushes from Samuel to Olivia, a hand-knitted scarf and a book of poetry from Olivia to Samuel. But the best gift came as they sat together on the bearskin rug before the fire. The remains of their Christmas Eve feast cleared away, snowflakes dancing past the windows in the gathering darkness. Samuel reached into his pocket and withdrew a small wooden box, intricately carved with wildflowers. I have one more thing for you, he said, his voice husky with emotion. Olivia's heart began to race as he placed the box in her hands. She opened it slowly to reveal a ring, a simple gold band set with a small but perfect sapphire. It was my mother's, Samuel explained, watching her face intently. My father gave it to her when they decided to head west from Pennsylvania. He said blue was for the sky they'd live under, gold for the life they'd build together. Tears blurred Olivia's vision as she looked from the ring to Samuel's face. It's beautiful. Olivia Pierce, Samuel said, taking her hands in his. These past months have shown me what I want for the rest of my life. You by my side, your art on these walls, your laughter in these rooms. He swallowed hard. I know it's not the life you planned. I know Wyoming isn't Chicago or Boston. But I promise to make it a good life, a happy one. Are you asking me to marry you, Samuel Blackwood? Olivia whispered, her voice catching. I am, he said simply, with all my heart. The fire crackled in the silence that followed, casting dancing shadows across their faces. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the promise of more snow. But inside the cabin, time seemed suspended as Olivia found the words she needed. When I came to Wyoming, I thought it was temporary, a stepping stone to somewhere else. She touched the ring gently. I never expected to find home here, or love. Samuel's hands tightened around hers. "And have you found those things?" "Yes," Olivia said, certainty filling her. "Yes, I have. And yes, Samuel Blackwood, I will marry you." Joy broke across his face like sunrise. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms, his kiss deep and tender and full of promise. Olivia responded with equal fervor, her hands tangling in his hair, her body pressing closer to his warmth. When they finally broke apart, breathless and flushed, Samuel rested his forehead against hers. "When?" he asked. "Spring? Summer?" Olivia thought of the months ahead, of the cabin they would make into a home, of the life waiting to unfold. "Spring," she decided, "when the wildflowers return." They sealed the promise with another kiss, this one lingering until the boundaries they'd carefully maintained began to blur. Olivia felt herself surrendering to the heat building between them, desire overwhelming caution. Samuel pulled away first, his breathing ragged. "We should stop," he said, though his eyes said otherwise. "Why?" Olivia asked boldly, surprising herself with her directness. "Because I respect you," Samuel answered honestly. "Because I want to do this right." Olivia touched his face gently. "What's right is what feels true to both of us. And this us here now feels true to me." Understanding dawned in Samuel's eyes. "Are you sure?" In answer, Olivia kissed him again, putting all her certainty, all her love into the connection between them. Whatever happened tomorrow, whatever challenges lay ahead, tonight they would claim this moment as their own. The Christmas snow continued to fall as they made their way to Samuel's bedroom, where the simple iron bed was covered with a handmade quilt. Candles guttered in the draft as they undressed each other slowly, reverently, discovering with touch what had only been imagined. "You're beautiful," Samuel whispered against her skin, his hands gentle as they explored the curves of her body. "So beautiful." Olivia trembled beneath his touch, her own hands mapping the landscape of his shoulders, his chest, the strong planes of his back. When they finally came together, the initial discomfort gave way to pleasure so intense it brought tears to her eyes, not from pain but from the overwhelming intimacy of their connection. Afterward, they lay tangled in the quilt, the wind howling outside contrasting with the peaceful warmth they'd created. Samuel traced lazy patterns on Olivia's bare shoulder, his expression one of wonder and contentment. "No regrets?" he asked softly. Olivia shook her head, nestling closer to his side. "None." "You? Only that I didn't find you sooner," Samuel replied, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Think of all the time we could have had." "We have now," Olivia reminded him, "and tomorrow and all the days after." Samuel's arms tightened around her. "I'll make each one count. I promise." As sleep claimed them, Olivia's last conscious thought was that she had finally, truly been found. Christmas morning dawned clear and brilliant, sunlight sparkling off fresh snow. Olivia woke to find Samuel watching her, his expression soft with love. "Merry Christmas," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Merry Christmas," she replied, still marveling at the ring on her finger and the night they'd shared. They spent the day in a bubble of happiness, cooking breakfast together, walking through the snow-covered valley, planning the improvements they would make to the cabin before spring. Every glance, every touch carried the weight of their new understanding, their commitment to the future they would build. When it came time to return to town the next day, Olivia felt a pang of reluctance. The homestead already felt like home in a way her aunt's house never had. In a way even her childhood home in Chicago had ceased to be after her father's death. "It won't be long," Samuel assured her, sensing her thoughts as he helped her into the sleigh. "A few months, and you'll never have to leave again unless you want to. I'll hold you to that, Mr. Blackwood," Olivia said, smiling up at him. The news of their engagement spread through Willow Creek like wildfire. Most reactions were positive congratulations from the Davidsons, tears and hugs from Mrs. Holloway, a beautiful painting of the homestead as an engagement gift from Sophia. Margaret Pierce's response was predictably cold. When Olivia visited to share the news, her aunt received it with tight-lipped disapproval. "So you're determined to repeat your mother's mistakes," she said, refusing to look at the ring. "Throwing yourself away on this wilderness." Olivia had expected the criticism, but her newfound happiness gave her courage. "My mother's choices were her own, Aunt Margaret, as are mine. I'd like your blessing, but I don't require it." Something flickered in her aunt's eyes, respect, perhaps, or simple recognition that Olivia was no longer the uncertain young woman who had arrived on the stagecoach last spring. "He seems decent enough," Margaret conceded reluctantly. "Though what kind of life he can offer you?" "A life filled with love and purpose," Olivia interrupted gently. "That's more than many can claim." After a moment, Margaret nodded stiffly. "Well, I suppose I'll need to find something suitable to wear to a spring wedding." It wasn't enthusiastic approval, but it was acceptance. Olivia counted it as a victory. The winter months passed more quickly than Olivia could have imagined. Between her work at the mercantile, her art lessons with Sophia, and the wedding preparations, the days flew by. Evenings and Sundays belonged to Samuel, their time together growing more precious as their wedding day approached. True to his word, Samuel worked tirelessly on the homestead, adding a proper studio space for Olivia's art and expanding the main bedroom. When snow made building impossible, he focused on crafting furniture: a dining table large enough for guests, a rocking chair for the porch, bookshelves for their growing collection. March brought the first hints of spring to Wyoming Territory. Snow began to retreat from the valley, revealing tender green shoots beneath. At the homestead, wildflowers pushed through the softening earth: blue lupins, yellow columbines, and the tiny white blossoms that had inspired their wedding date. 2 weeks before the wedding, as Olivia was closing the mercantile for the evening, the stagecoach arrived from Cheyenne. She paid it little mind until Mr. Davidson called her to the front of the store. "Someone here asking for you, Miss Pierce," he said, gesturing toward a tall, elegant woman standing by the counter. "Says she's come quite a distance." Olivia approached curiously. The woman was perhaps 50, her dark hair streaked with silver, her clothing of obvious quality though travel-worn. Something about her face, the shape of her eyes, the curve of her cheek tugged at Olivia's memory. "Miss Pierce?" the woman asked, her voice cultured but tentative. "Olivia Pierce?" "Yes," Olivia confirmed, studying the stranger with growing confusion. "I'm sorry, have we met?" The woman's eyes, so strikingly like Olivia's own, filled with tears. "Not since you were very small," she said softly. "I'm Eleanor Pierce, your mother." The world seemed to tilt beneath Olivia's feet. She gripped the counter for support, staring at the woman who had been a ghost in her life for 18 years. "My mother is dead," she said automatically, repeating what her father had told her after her mother's disappearance. "She died when I was 5. Eleanor flinched but held her ground. "I'm very much alive, as you can see, though I understand why your father might have told you otherwise." She glanced around the store, aware of the curious onlookers. "Could we speak somewhere more private?" In a daze, Olivia led her mother to the small office at the back of the mercantile. Once the door closed behind them, she turned to confront the woman who had abandoned her so long ago. "Why are you here?" she demanded, surprised by the anger in her voice. "Why now, after all these years?" Eleanor sank into a chair, suddenly looking every one of her years. "I received a letter from Margaret. She wrote that you were here in Wyoming, that you were—" She hesitated, That you were following in my footsteps in ways that concerned her. Aunt Margaret wrote to you? Olivia was stunned. She told me she didn't know where you were, that you'd run off with an artist. A bitter smile crossed Eleanor's face. Is that the story they told? I suppose it was kinder than the truth. She looked up at Olivia. I didn't run away, my darling. I was sent away. The office suddenly felt too small, the air too thick. Olivia sat heavily in the chair opposite her mother. I don't understand. Your father discovered my art, Eleanor explained, her voice steady despite the pain evident in her eyes. Not the proper ladle-like watercolors I showed in the parlor, but my real-work landscapes, portraits, scenes of Chicago's streets and factories. He was furious. Said no wife of his would pursue such unseemly interests. Olivia remembered her aunt's reaction to her own drawings and felt a chill of recognition. When I refused to give it up, he gave me an ultimatum: abandon my art or leave his house. Without you. Eleanor's hands twisted in her lap. I thought he was bluffing. I packed my things, certain he would relent rather than raise a child alone. But he didn't, Olivia whispered. No. He had me declared unfit, claimed I was mentally unstable, that my artistic obsession was a form of madness. Tears slipped down Eleanor's cheeks. He threatened to have me committed if I fought him for custody. My own family supported him, including Margaret. I had no choice but to leave. Where did you go? Olivia asked, her anger giving way to a desperate need to understand. To San Francisco, eventually. I found work as an illustrator for newspapers, then magazines. I've made a name for myself in a modest way. Eleanor reached into her bag, withdrawing a small book. These are my published works. I've kept a copy of everything, thinking that someday. Hoping that someday you might want to see them. Olivia took the book with trembling hands. Opening it revealed dozens of illustrations, beautiful, evocative scenes that showed unmistakable talent and a distinctive style that resonated with her own artistic sensibilities. I wrote to you, Eleanor continued softly, every birthday, every Christmas. Letters your father returned unopened. After he died, I wrote to Margaret asking about you. She responded only once, saying you were well but wanted no contact with me. That wasn't true, Olivia said, anger flaring again, this time directed at her aunt and her father. I was told you were dead, that you died while traveling. There was even a grave in Chicago. Eleanor's bitter laugh held no humor. Your father always was thorough. A grave for his disgraced wife, rather than admit she'd left him. She leaned forward. When Margaret's letter arrived, saying you were in Wyoming, engaged to a rancher, pursuing art despite her objections, I knew I had to come, to warn you, to help you avoid my mistakes. What mistakes? Olivia asked. Following your passion? Being true to yourself? Believing that love is enough? Eleanor said quietly. That the world will make space for a woman's dreams alongside her duties. Olivia thought of Samuel, of his pride in her art, the studio he'd built for her, his unwavering support of her lessons with Sophia. Maybe it can, with the right person beside you. Hope flickered in Eleanor's eyes. Your fiancé. He supports your art. More than that, Olivia said, a smile finally breaking through her shock. He celebrates it. He's building our home around it. Eleanor studied her daughter's face. Then perhaps you've found what I couldn't. A man who sees all of you, not just the parts that fit his expectations. She hesitated. I'd very much like to meet him, if you're willing. The request hung between them an olive branch, a chance to bridge 18 years of absence. Olivia considered it, weighing the hurt of abandonment against the revelation of her mother's suffering, the years lost against the possibility of connection regained. He'll want to meet you too, she said finally. We're to be married in 2 weeks. Would you? Would you stay for the wedding? The question was tentative, a small step toward forgiveness. Eleanor's eyes filled with fresh tears. I would be honored, she whispered. More than you can know. That evening, Olivia and Eleanor walked to the boarding house together, the conversation between them careful but warming with each passing block. Mrs. Holloway, bless her heart, asked no questions when Olivia requested a room for her mother, simply showing Eleanor to the vacant room next to Olivia's with a sympathetic smile. After dinner, as the other boarders retired for the evening, Olivia slipped out to the telegraph office. Samuel needed to know about this unexpected development before he came to town tomorrow. The message she sent was simple. Mother arrived today. Alive, not dead as believed. Long story. Coming to Homestead tomorrow. Bring Sophia if possible. Samuel was waiting for them the next morning, his wagon ready at the boarding house door. Sophia sat beside him, her curiosity evident but tempered with the discretion of a true friend. Introductions were made with careful politeness, the tension palpable as Samuel helped both women into the wagon. As they drove toward the homestead, Olivia watched her fiancé's profile, noting the cautious way he responded to Eleanor's questions about his ranch, his plans, his background. You're protective of her, Eleanor observed during a lull in the conversation. I'm glad. Samuel's eyes flicked to Olivia, then back to the road. She's the most important person in my life. As she should be, Eleanor agreed softly. At the homestead, Sophia tactfully engaged Eleanor in conversation about art, while Samuel pulled Olivia aside, his concern evident. Are you all right? He asked, searching her face. This must be overwhelming. Olivia leaned into his strength, allowing herself a moment of vulnerability. I'm still processing it. All those years thinking she abandoned me when really she was forced away, Samuel finished, his jaw tightening. It's cruel what was done to both of you. My father's ghost has a lot to answer for, Olivia agreed. And Aunt Margaret. I can't believe she contacted my mother behind my back. Samuel's expression softened. Maybe, in her own way, she was trying to protect you, to warn your mother away before history repeated itself. Maybe, Olivia conceded, though the betrayal still stung. But she didn't count on you being different from my father. Different how? Samuel asked, genuinely curious. Olivia smiled up at him, love swelling in her chest. You don't want to change me. You want to see me grow. My father saw my mother's art as a threat. You see mine as a gift. Samuel bent to kiss her forehead. It is a gift. You are a gift. And I'll spend my life making sure you never doubt it. Over the next 2 weeks, as wedding preparations accelerated, Eleanor became an unexpected but welcome addition to Olivia's life. There were difficult conversations, tears shed for lost years, and moments of awkwardness when the gap between them seemed unbridgeable. But there was also laughter, shared artistic insights, and the gradual building of something new, not the mother-daughter relationship that might have been, but one forged in adult understanding and mutual respect. To Olivia's surprise, Margaret Pierce also thawed slightly. When Eleanor confronted her former sister-in-law about the lies that had separated mother and daughter, Margaret had the grace to look ashamed. I believed what my brother told me, she defended herself. And later, when I learned more of the truth, I thought it would only hurt Olivia to reopen old wounds. It wasn't your decision to make, Eleanor said firmly. But I'm grateful you wrote to me about her engagement, even if your intentions were to warn me away. Margaret sniffed. I simply thought you should know your daughter was about to make a life-altering decision. A good decision, Olivia interjected, unwilling to let her aunt's disapproval dampen her happiness. The best I've ever made. The wedding day dawned clear and perfect, the Wyoming spring in full glory. Wildflowers carpeted the valley around the homestead, nature's own decoration for the simple ceremony that would take place there. In the bedroom of the cabin, soon to be her bedroom with Samuel, Olivia stood before the mirror while Eleanor and Sophia made final adjustments to her dress. It was simpler than what she might have worn in Chicago, but more beautiful for its understated elegance, ivory satin with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs, a pattern of tiny pearls cascading down the bodice. "You look radiant," Eleanor said, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Truly a bride in love." "I am," Olivia confirmed, touching the sapphire ring that would soon be joined by a gold band. "Completely in love." Eleanor adjusted the wreath of wildflowers in Olivia's hair. "I've been thinking, once you're settled, perhaps you might consider visiting San Francisco. Both of you. I could introduce you to some gallery owners who might be interested in your work." Olivia turned to her mother, surprised by the offer. "You'd want to show my art?" "Your talent deserves to be seen," Eleanor said simply. "And I'd like the chance to know my daughter and her husband better. If you're willing." The gesture represented more than a professional opportunity. It was an invitation to continue building their newfound relationship, to create a future that acknowledged the past without being imprisoned by it. "We'd like that," Olivia said, impulsively embracing her mother. "Thank you." A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Sophia opened it to reveal Mrs. Holloway, resplendent in her Sunday best. "It's time, dear," the older woman announced. "Your groom is waiting, and from the look of him, he's about to wear a path in the grass with his pacing." Laughter eased the emotional tension as the women made final preparations. Sophia slipped out to take her place among the guests, while Mrs. Holloway prepared to escort Eleanor to her seat of honor. Before leaving, Eleanor pressed something into Olivia's hand, a small brooch of silver and turquoise. "This was mine when I married your father," she explained. "Not all of that marriage was unhappy. He loved me once and I him, and without it I wouldn't have you." She touched Olivia's cheek gently. "Something old, for your new beginning." Tears threatened to ruin Olivia's carefully applied cosmetics. "Thank you," she whispered, pinning the brooch to her bouquet of wildflowers. When Eleanor and Mrs. Holloway had gone, Olivia took a final moment alone. Through the window, she could see the gathering below townsfolk who had become friends, Samuel's fellow ranch hands from the Rocking W, even Margaret Pierce sitting stiffly beside Eleanor in a gesture of reconciliation that spoke volumes. And there was Samuel, standing tall and handsome in his best suit, his eyes scanning the cabin windows as if he could will her to appear. The sight of him, the man who had pulled her from the creek, who had found her crying at the station, who had built a home and a future around her dreams, filled Olivia with certainty. This was where she belonged. This was home. The simple ceremony unfolded beneath the Wyoming sky, vows exchanged with clear voices and full hearts. When Samuel slipped the gold band onto her finger to join her mother's sapphire ring, Olivia felt the circle of her life completing, past connected to present, present opening to future. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. "What God has joined together, let no man put asunder." Samuel's kiss was both tender and promising, a declaration before their community of the love they had found in each other. The cheers and applause that followed carried on the spring breeze, reaching to the distant mountains that had once seemed so foreign to Olivia and now framed the landscape of her heart. The celebration continued well into the evening, with food and music and dancing in the clearing before the cabin. As sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, Olivia found a moment of quiet with her new husband on the porch they had built together. "Happy?" Samuel asked, his arms secure around her waist. "Completely," Olivia confirmed, leaning into his embrace. "And you?" Samuel's smile was answer enough, but he put it into words anyway. "I have everything I ever wanted, right here." From the gathering below, Eleanor approached, a small package in her hands. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, her gaze taking in their evident happiness with approval. "I wanted to give you your wedding gift before I return to town." "You're not staying at the homestead tonight?" Olivia asked, surprised. Eleanor laughed softly. "I think a bride and groom deserve their privacy on their wedding night." She handed the package to Samuel. "This is for both of you, but perhaps more for you, Samuel. A record of your bride's early years that you missed." Samuel unwrapped the package to reveal a leather-bound album. Inside were drawings, dozens of them, clearly done by Eleanor's skilled hand, capturing Olivia at various ages from infancy through early childhood. "I couldn't be with her," Eleanor explained, her voice catching, "but I never stopped thinking of her, imagining how she was growing. These are from memory, from dreams. Not accurate, perhaps, but true in their way." Samuel's hand found Olivia's, squeezing gently as they turned the pages together. The gift was priceless, a bridge across the years of separation, a mother's love expressed through the art that had cost her so dearly. "Thank you," Samuel said, his own voice rough with emotion. "For this and for your daughter. I'll treasure both all my days." As Eleanor slipped away to rejoin the celebration, Olivia turned in her husband's arms. "I never expected this," she confessed. "Any of it. When I came to Wyoming, I thought I was just passing through on my way to somewhere else. And now?" Samuel asked, brushing a strand of hair from her face with tender fingers. Olivia looked out at the land they would share, the life they would build, the love they had found against all odds. "Now I know I was always heading here, to this place, to you." The music from the celebration drifted up to them as Samuel bent to kiss his bride once more. Around them, the Wyoming evening settled into peaceful twilight, stars appearing one by one in the vast sky that had become their canopy. Later, when the guests had departed and they were finally alone in their home, Samuel and Olivia stood together at the window, watching the moon rise over their land. "Do you remember what I said to you at the station?" Samuel asked, his arms encircling her from behind. Olivia leaned back against his chest, content in a way she had never imagined possible. "You said, 'Don't leave. You've already been found.'" "I meant it then," Samuel murmured against her hair. "And I mean it now. You found your place, Olivia Blackwood. And I found mine right beside you." The promise, simple yet profound, echoed in the quiet of their wedding night, the beginning of a story that would unfold across seasons and years, challenges and joys, all building upon this moment of perfect certainty. Olivia turned in his arms, reaching up to trace the beloved contours of his face. "I'm not going anywhere," she assured him. "This is where I belong." And as Samuel carried his bride to their bed, as two lives joined fully in love and commitment, the Wyoming night wrapped around their homestead like a blessing, a wild, beautiful backdrop to the home they had made within each other's hearts.